it's not just about you, it's about what kind of world am I leaving for my kids and what kind of legacy am I leaving behind. And it just 100% revolutionizes everything about you. You are not even close to the same person that you were before. And I'm so glad now, because I think that the way that I've been able to structure my life to be there for my kids when they need me, if I would have felt the pressure of having a boss and having somebody to report to, there's no way I wouldn't have been able to be the mom that I wanted to be. So I can't imagine.
Welcome, everyone, to another beautiful day, to a wonderful podcast. And yet again, Clueless Eli does not have a clue who he's going to speak to. This lady called Aquila Mendez-Valdez. How do you pronounce that surname?
You're good. It's Aquila Mendez-Valdez. It's nice.
There you go. And listeners, I'm terrible with surnames, so forgive me. So I'm glad she could finish off, because obviously she knows how to say it better than me, right? So it might as well be her. So, welcome. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm delighted to be here.
Okay, so as we always go forward, please tell us how you help people within your business, and then we'll go with the flow from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So my business, I own a PR and marketing agency. We have been around for about 10 years, and we do a lot of different things, but primarily we help female founders tell their stories to the world, whether it's about them and their journey of growing their business, or what they do within their business to change, society for the better as well. But we're very fortunate to be growing quickly and have a great team on hand here in Texas. But we're growing beyond even the borders of Texas, and very fortunate to be doing so.
Okay, so how did you come about trying to engage with people to be able to push their business in a positive way, PR-wise? What got you to the stage of going in that direction?
Yeah. Well, I actually went to college to become a journalist. I wanted to, be a foreign correspondent, and, really was pretty passionate about journalism from a very young age, and writing and loved reading and all of that fun stuff. And then when I got to college, realized I think I really want a career that would be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more family friendly than the journalism world tends to be. And so I switched to PR pretty quickly. But I think I've really continued to love the aspects of PR that allow me to be really curious and tell stories. So that really is the focus that we try to emphasize with all of our clients, is you have to have some type of story. I think that's what people connect with. They want to know who is the person behind the brand, what are the values that you stand for. And if you're not willing to be vulnerable in at least a little bit of a capacity to share that with your audience, then you're just going to be fighting a much more uphill battle to see that growth that you're trying to achieve.
And I suppose that's more prevalent now AI has come along, because now we've got to a stage where people are creating content and videos and etc. and they're very similar. Do you think it's now needed more than ever to be personable, to be unique?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that we, absolutely leverage AI in our business for our clients. And usually where it comes in handy, I think, is those tasks that you think are going to be sort of a drag and you're dreading, executing. It can just shorten the time frame to create a lot of content and help you sort of build out the framework. But yes, I think we're going to reach a tipping point at some point in the future where everyone will be fairly jaded and suspicious of most social media content, thinking, well, it's just a robot. It's just a robot. There's not really a real human behind that. And if you are willing to put an actual face to an actual name and have yourself be visible, I think that will help people build that trust. Whereas if it's a nameless, faceless brand, they're just going to sort of discount it as being all AI, probably in the not too distant future.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're getting a lot of content now that really at the moment saying, in the world of and then straight away you know that's AI. You know there's
Yeah.
certain and that's what's going on. And have you noticed the content's just getting longer and longer now? You're reading these posts and they're huge. Never used to be. It's
Right.
funny how people have got so much time to write these long
Yes.
posts, right?
Absolutely.
But who has time? Who has time to do that? Who has time to read each individual post that takes 5 minutes each? It doesn't happen. So I suppose from that point of view, people are just going to look at it, scroll away, unless there's something personable, something that jumps around that's unique. Again, you've got a format that's very samey because the posts are getting longer. Who has time to look at these constant long posts? So we have to find a way to be unique. And I think that's where you're going to shine. A lot of people were saying that AI was going to take over in so many ways. It's going to be a fad for probably about another 2 years. But after people are clued and fed up of the same old, I suppose this is where you start to shine.
Yeah, we can certainly hope that we stay relevant for sure, right? But I think it is going to be, much more important for people to feel that they can trust you as a brand, and that's really what the core of PR is in general.
Definitely. Now, we have an ADHD person in your family I wanted to speak about. This show is all about neurodivergent. So I want to find out where you come from, because you're a bit of a storyteller. So I want to speak about more than that. And you have a child that's ADHD, is that not right?
Yeah. My youngest daughter was diagnosed actually about a year ago. And it's really a transformational experience for the whole family, I think, to finally get that diagnosis. And it's changed a lot of the way that I look at the world, interact with the world, build out, processes and things like that for my business. And so it's not just about helping her, but really how she's also, impacted us in a very positive way as well.
So how's that affected you? Considering that it's something that affects her directly, how has that affected you, and how have you changed to adjust with what's happened with your daughter? If you could just let us know.
Yeah, 100%. So, it's funny because I think my husband is for sure ADHD as well. And so
always the man's fault. Always the man's fault.
He connects, I think, with her on a very, I feel the same way. I have the same, challenges, that kind of thing. He can connect with her there. For me being, neurotypical, I think that it has taught me to just let the important things be important and understand when she's, pushing us or making us think about things in a different way. I have to kind of step back and realize, okay, her ADHD is making her feel this way or have this reaction or have this, type of need in this moment. I'm going to stop and prioritize instead of, this is the schedule, this is what we need to do, this is what, my type A, very driven, sort of efficient type personality cannot always be the dominant personality anymore. There are certainly times where I have to let her be the priority and the sort of driving factor in a lot of things. I think that's 100% impacted, me learning and growing as a person and just becoming overall more empathetic and understanding of where she's coming from.
Okay, so before you found out she was ADHD, now you have hindsight. Where did this all begin with your daughter? With hindsight, remember, because you knew something weren't quite right. But now you've had the aha moment and you're looking further back and thinking, oh, that's why she was. So take us right back with hindsight.
Yeah, so it's funny because I have two daughters, and my oldest was always, very easy to get to school, very easy to, drop off, no issues ever with her. And my youngest, right about when she hit, second grade, it was starting to really be a challenge to get her to go to school in the morning. And we kept kind of, trying different things. Can we do rewards? Can we do, punishments? Can we do all sorts of different, paths that we tried to take? And then we sort of started to peel back the layers of, okay, what's really going on here? Like, I know she loves her teacher. I know she loves her classroom, but what is she actually what is actually rebelling within her that she doesn't feel like school is a happy place she wants to go to, at least in the morning, at least until she gets there. And what we really kind of uncovered was that she was starting to feel really anxious in class because her little body is just trying to fight so hard to pay attention all day. And by the time she was done, she was completely exhausted and had just, you know, the term now I think is masking that gets talked around a lot. That,
That's right.
you know, for her, it was just such a challenge to spend the whole school day battling against her mind and really feeling alone in that, I'm sure, which is heartbreaking as a parent to feel like you should have noticed sooner, you should have known, you should have been, you know, thinking about it. But you know, once we sort of started having that inclination was really when we went down the path of immediately seeking out resources and therapists and plenty of friends who have kiddos who are in the same boat. And so that's for sure, you know, the bright side is that once you realize you're not alone at all, there's so many things out there to help and to be a resource for parents and families in general.
Okay, so did she not actually express herself with you even in the slightest of way when she was having issues, or did she just not feel confident enough to be able to do that?
It's a good question. I think she had not necessarily expressed it that I can't pay attention. I don't think that she had ever really been able to sort that out for herself.
Okay.
But it was interesting once we went through the process of having her, you know, tested and had conversations with her and all of that. Now she does advocate for herself. And, you know, you start looking at things like medication and all of that. And she really speaks up for herself at this point where she says, I do want to, you know, I want medication today, Mom. I don't want medication this day, Mom. Like she's learning and growing and able to say for herself, I feel like I need it. I don't feel like I need it. And so now we're kind of in that phase of how much do we let her, you know, drive the boat and how much do we, you know, dictate as her parents. But I'm really proud of her for developing those communication skills because a lot of times for her, when she is in that mode of feeling frustrated, it really escalates in terms of having really big feelings, you know, really big moments of outbursts and frustration. And she has gotten so much better over the last year of recognizing that before it gets to that point, and being able to tell us, you know, where she's at emotionally.
Okay, so once she found out she was ADHD and once everybody had the conversation, I'm sure you had an extra in-depth conversation to say, well, to be honest, Mum, you know, I felt this way and that way. And so what did she express at the time after knowing and she felt comfortable enough to say, yeah, I think I suffered because of this way. And what details did she discuss with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think she was able to communicate with us that, you know, she would have moments in the classroom where she was, you know, embarrassed to have to ask for help, or she would have moments where she would get lost in the middle of the instruction and she would feel embarrassed to have to raise her hand and say, I'm sorry, I don't know where we're at. Or, oh, I zoned out. I don't know what happened. I don't know, you know, what the teacher was just saying. So that was certainly like heartbreaking because she's had wonderful teachers that would have been more than happy to, you know, help her and catch her up, but they didn't know what they didn't know. So, you know, that was certainly a really big moment for us to be able to clue her teachers in as well, that even if she's looking right at you and she looks like she's paying attention, she's got to have those like, you know, extra checks for understanding and extra, you know, sort of moments where you don't just take it at face value that she's good to go, everything's fine. A lot of times it's that duck swimming across the surface and she looks fine, but she's like, you know, going a million miles a minute under the surface.
And it was really difficult for her. I can only imagine it, you know, especially when you see just like they thought that she was focused because she's very asking, right? There's so many other kids probably in the same position or not that look focused. So she's looking around. Everyone seems to be knowing what they're doing, so of course that's where the embarrassment comes into. I really don't want to be singled out, you know. So it was difficult for her, but I'm glad it got to the stage that you could all communicate and move forward. And
Yeah.
I can only imagine it was really, really difficult. So how long did this happen for her? I mean, the ADHD side of things, before she went to school, did you see certain traits of the AD? With hindsight, of course, you didn't know it was ADHD, but could you see traits from a point of view, let's say 2.5 years old, 3 years old, whatever the case is? When you look back now, did you see certain traits?
I think that we maybe noticed, particularly with, again, you're looking at your kids and thinking, oh, they're just going to be carbon copies. And then you realize, oh, no, they're vastly different, kids, same mom, same dad, same childhood. But you're like, oh, my gosh, this is a whole new experience. So I think the biggest thing that we noticed looking back now is Issa has always had a challenge with transitions. If she's in something and she is excited about it and all of a sudden, okay, we got to go, like, it's a really hard thing to get her to transition. So I think that's definitely partly the ADHD, because it is, she feels so strongly about something. If she is excited about it, that to take her out of it is like, the worst thing in the world. So she has some of those moments of like hyper focus and sort of fixation almost. And then I think, for her too, feeling out of control in her space or in her world, if it's her mind running too quickly, or if she's getting too much input, too much stuff is going on and kind of coming at her at all at once, then she really has some big, like I was talking about before, some big feelings around that. And so a lot of times it's just sort of, I am a huge fan of Dr. Becky and Good Inside. And I think one of the things that she talks about with, she calls them deeply feeling kids. And it makes sense that a lot of ADHD kids are in that category of being very deeply feeling, because they've got so much going on in their little minds that it can just be a lot. And she talks about being a sturdy pilot for them. And I think that's what we see a lot, is like when her mind is just going, and she feels out of control, we have to be that grounding force for her to say, I've got you. Your big feelings don't scare me. Your little mind doesn't scare me at all. Like, I get it that you're having a big feeling right now, but I'm here and everything's okay. And that, I think, has gone a long way to sort of help her come down off of that, a lot faster.
That sounds amazing. And obviously it helps her at the moment because she's got a dad that's ADHD too. So, the dad and their girls. I know what that feels like, and it's a beautiful relationship. But it must help her also, because they've obviously got some things in common. They appreciate each other. So that must be good for her to have that support from that point of view, as well as a mother being able to support her from a different point of view. She's actually got a 360-degree way supported, which must feel amazing for her. Created a loving situation for her to feel that she can express herself. She can say what her needs are and how difficult things are, so she can go forward.
I hope so. I mean, I certainly hope that modern day parenting has really evolved to the point where it's about how can I be the best parent for my kid, and not forcing them to fit into this mold of it's my way or the highway and you have to do as I say. So I think that my husband and I bring very different perspectives to it. But absolutely, he enjoys kind of learning about his mind at the same time as helping her understand her mind. And I think it's really good for her as well to see dad's been very successful. Dad's been able to do all of these amazing things. So this does not in any way have to feel like a burden or something to be ashamed of or something to be embarrassed about. It's just your mind works differently, and it's just as gorgeous and stunning as any other mind, Yeah,
exactly. And at the same time, you're teaching her that, you can do. It's not going to stop you from achieving in life. As dad's successful and mum's successful, you can go forward and achieve. And most people, when they find out they're dyslexic, autistic, ADHD, etc. Most people do go through the stage where that's it, my life is over, I can't function, I can't. And I did that, the same thing. I did the same thing. But straight away, you seem to have nipped it in the bud as quickly as possible. So she feels like she is no less a person than her peers. And this is what's really important. You've instilled that straight away as quickly. And of course, it's not going to be perfect. There will be issues. There will be teething. But the point, the overall is you're pushing forward, and she knows she is able to be capable and to be able to achieve. Was that a conscious thing from the off? Did you sit down with your husband and say, well, look, we've got to make sure she is? And what was that conversation like? What was...
Yeah, I mean, I think every parent, when they find out something about their child that's different, I think there's always that moment of, should I protect them from this? Should I shield them from this? Should I keep it from them? And at the end, that's a natural instinct, I think, to feel that protective sense of like, I just don't want anything to possibly hurt them. But my husband and I talk a lot about, we're not going to be able to keep them from adversity, even beyond, the way Issa's mind works. There's going to be so many other things, external factors that come at her that will be challenging. So our job is really to be in control of how she experiences that, so that when adversity comes her way that we haven't been aware of, we haven't been able to anticipate, hypothetically that blow would not be as severe. So we were very intentional about, how do we talk to her? How do we, introduce this to her? Even in the conversations with her, teachers and staff and everything like that, we were very, very clear that this is not in any way to be something where she's singled out or made to feel bad about, and they were very much on board with that now. And I just think it's wonderful that our society has come that far, that not only do we find out quickly, and faster for kids, that they need maybe some additional support, but there's far less judgment for them to need that support. It's just, okay, now we have more information and we're ready to move forward.
Okay, and when it comes to judgment, did she have any issues with her peers before and after the ADHD? So let's talk about before. Did she have problems with her peers or family or any? Just give us the environment that affected her before the ADHD was found that she had.
I don't know. I don't think so. Certainly not from I don't think it would ever be, categorized as, bullying or anything like that she experienced. I think a handful of times she was aware that school was maybe a little bit more of a challenge for her. But, we're very fortunate that our kids go to a great school where, they have all the resources that they need. They have, plenty of teachers that have the bandwidth and capacity to be there for kids on an individual basis. So in that sense, I don't know that she ever really felt, shame or judgment, but which is great. Absolutely.
And after the ADHD, so I'm sure some people know outside the family unit. I mean, what was the feedback when it came to that? Yeah.
It's funny because I think, she sort of like in her mind, as she was sorting it out, she kind of a few times would have incidents where she, would have a big outburst or something like that, particularly when we were working on the medication, deciding whether or not to have her on anything. And she would sort of say, well, clearly it's not working. The medicine's not working. And it was almost like she was sort of working out for herself. Like, is this something that I, can use almost as like a way to be, I guess, framing her worldview around like, clearly that's my ADHD, coming out. But I still think, she's never been embarrassed to talk about it with her friends or family. And she has, she knows of several other friends that have ADHD. She knows several other family members that have ADHD. So it wasn't like she felt like, oh, I'm the only person in my world that is in this category. So I think that helped as well.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, if we went back by about 20 years, especially girls were so-called told they couldn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that was really difficult. I mean, boys, yes, they had that diagnosis at that time, but God knows why they thought girls couldn't have it. As always, women have to suffer, right?
Right.
Which is wrong, but it is what it is. But now at least we're in a situation where she can get the support and it could be understood.
Yeah.
And when it comes to support, so you've got the support of the teachers, their understanding. Is there any external support? So any special organizations or anything beyond that? How does that work out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I think social media, for all of its pros and cons, I think that it's wonderful to have additional support there of resources and, you know, influencers to follow and parenting sort of experts that you can have, you know, insane access to, because there's so much content out there for parents. But for her individually, we have had her meet with a therapist a few times, and she's been amazing. You know, she doesn't need to or want to go see her every single week, but when we do go and check in with her and make sure things are going well, it's always really helpful. Particularly, I think for me, when she did the test to have her sit and pay attention to a screen and kind of click when she saw the shape or whatever it was that she was supposed to, you know, indicate every time, that was so eye-opening to me to watch her take that test. Really? Because like you're talking about, you know, boys, you know, obviously we're stereotyping here, but so many times people think of it as the boys in class who can't sit still and they're constantly, you know, doing this, doing that. She had never done that in front of me. And so in front of her classmates too, and teachers, they would always say, well, gosh, I can't even tell. But to watch her have to sit and focus on that test with the therapist, immediately you could see in her body language that she was like itching to get out of her skin, having to sit and just lock in on this, you know, very boring task. It was not, like we were talking about before, something that she actually wants to be doing. So to watch her like physically start to just absolutely get insanely frustrated with that, almost to the point of being, you know, almost to the point of being upset at the end of the test because it was so challenging for her. Really? That to me was such a like affirming experience to feel like it's not in our heads. It's absolutely something that impacts her. And I mean, if that was a 15-minute test, how much more challenging is it for her to sit through an 8-hour school day? You know, so I think having outside sources that we've also been able to go to and have help and additional perspectives and somebody else to kind of help us feel like we're on the right track has been invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you were able to see that and then appreciate where she's coming from. Because I know what it's like for me trying to focus on anything for too long. It's not easy. But anyway, we find ways around it so we can cut things in chunks and then be able to attack the situation that we need to. Now, your husband, how does he handle his ADHD? Because he's very successful. Does he have this situation of concentration or anything like that? Are you all right speaking about your husband, by the way? That's
sure. Yeah.
So how did it affect him?
Right. Well, so my husband has, you know, quite the opposite experience where he, you know, grew up in the generation that it was never addressed. It was never, you know, caught or diagnosed for him. And so I think particularly because my husband was a professional athlete for many, many, many years, it benefited him to be really passionate and excited about one thing, but not having to like sit at a desk. And, you know, he didn't have that type of career for so long. But now that he's retired, he has definitely had an adjustment, you know, period where we've had to sort of build these, you know, executive functioning sort of, you know, I guess frameworks for him to be able to fit into that mold a little bit better. But still, I think it is a reason why he's been so successful, because he's not scared to try a lot of different things and tackle new things and move on. And if it doesn't work, no problem. I'm already on to 5 other ideas. So he's sort of that like serial entrepreneur now where I think that he just moves forward at lightning pace because he thrives on that. I get the fun job of being his like brakes, and he's sort of the accelerator all the time. But we're learning and growing together, you know, how best to help balance him out without, I don't want to dampen his spirit and his, you know, his vivaciousness, you know, and all of that. So, it is always a learning, you know, journey to figure that out for sure.
I'm really glad. I mean, it's obviously working for him, or should I say, he's found a way for it to work for him. He's had it all his life. He just, as you said, he went in the direction that of a career that he wanted to do, and it worked perfectly. It obviously worked for you as a partnership and a relationship. It was very exciting the way he was, you know. So, you know, you didn't care whether he's ADHD, dyslexic, or green, or whatever the case is. The point is, it worked for you. That's all that matters. Difference is good, isn't it? You don't have to be the same like everyone else. And I keep on saying this to people, you know, having ADHD or autism and etc. I think it's a situation where we are gifted in particular things. And if you see it from that point of view, and you don't have your hang-ups on your negatives, because even if you are just so-called normal, for better one for the word, we, you know, so-called normal have their issues, you know, and you have your strengths and you have your negatives. So, you know, it's same old, just in a different jacket. It's as simple as that. So if we just try to focus on what we are good at, give it to someone else what we're bad at, and just accelerate. So, and it seems like you've got such a wonderful family, regardless whether they're ADHD or whatever the case may be. Absolutely stunning. Now, about yourself, now I'm more interested in this storytelling, because you obviously have a passion when it comes to storytelling. That passion must come be sourced from somewhere. Have you always been a bit of a, how can I say, let's make it simple, a storyteller in some form, be that in your teens, being very expressive, acting, whatever the case is? Let's find out more about you.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. That's a good question, because I think that makes me kind of go back and reflect, like, where does that stem from?
Oh, did you think you was going to have an easy time and just talk about your daughter? I don't think so. When you're
very good at analyzing everyone else. Oh my God. Yeah.
Exactly. It's time to analyze you. Come on, let's go.
So I guess, you know, I think probably a good place to start would be, I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. And so I would imagine, you know, for a girl, I'm the oldest daughter, and, you know, had a bunch of younger siblings that for sure were fun and created a really unique environment to grow up in. But we were still pretty remote, pretty, you know, isolated in some ways. And so I think books and reading and writing were my way to explore and connect and, you know, find interesting stories to sort of engage my imagination. And I was the kid that would miss my bus stop because I would just be buried and not even, you know, pay attention. And my siblings would have to like elbow me and, come on, get up. It's we're here. Let's go.
Yeah.
So
could I just stop you there? Now, for especially when your background in use on a farm, typical for a sibling, a daughter, to be head stuck in a book almost 24/7. Is that a typical thing, or is that a you thing?
I mean, I would imagine that was a little bit of a me thing, because even like my siblings, you know, ended up being very different, and it was something that just really caught my passion, caught my you know, excitement right off the bat. And I also, I think too, probably one of the other factors is my dad is a really good storyteller, and I loved hearing stories about his childhood, and he was funny, and he would have really, really great timing on stories. And I just loved, like, you know, getting that punch of like a good laugh out of people because you told the story in like just the right way to like build up to it. So, I mean, I don't pretend to be a comedian by any stretch of the imagination, but just when you really grab people and you hook them with like something that just gives it that extra punch, there's no better feeling in the world, I think.
So basically what he did, he inspired you, and through his inspiration, you tried to be creative through the books and being creative in so many ways to keep that storytelling, because that inspired you. You found that quite creative. You being on the farm wasn't quite creative enough.
No.
You weren't a farm girl as much as you was, born
on a farm and a
yeah,
girl. Not
but
a farm
you weren't supposed to do that. So hence why you tried to live out your life within a book. You tried. You had that great imagination for you to live beyond the farm. Would that be correct to say?
Oh yeah. No, I was definitely that kid that couldn't wait to leave, couldn't wait to go on to, the big city and find new adventures. I wanted to, go out of state for college, and I did, and was very fortunate that my parents did love to travel and exposed us to a lot of different cultures and, places and things, and loved museums, loved like exploring. So yeah, I think my parents really did a great job of encouraging me to feel like, go do whatever it is that you want to do. We have, like, my dad, I can remember asking him, does it feel like, right as I was graduating high school, does it feel like it's time for this, Dad? Like, are you surprised, like, how fast? Or do you think I'm like, gonna be, almost kind of asking, do you think I'm gonna be okay? And he just was like, I've never had a doubt. What are you talking about? Like, yeah, of course. Like, this is the next phase and you're ready for it. And, it hasn't even occurred to me to be worried about you. So, I think that between my parents and then having some really, really amazing teachers over the years that, saw my love of reading, saw my love of writing, they saw it, recognized it, and made me feel really great about it. They were happy to just pour into me. And for sure, I'm very grateful for that too.
So when you left high school, how did that creativity continue?
Well, I mean, I was playing volleyball for the college that I went to. So I think that, juggling volleyball and school and, all of those things, I think that my creativity was almost kind of compartmentalized for a while, where it was like, I've only got so much bandwidth. I can do my schoolwork, but I've also got to do all these other responsibilities. So really, I think, college, for sure, I was able to get a lot of the tools and things in place to continue and be ready for my career. But I think really when I started to come into my own of that creativity side is really when I started my agency, and having to kind of tap back into that side of myself to trust my gut, trust my instinct. It's really challenging when somebody just says, here's my company, you decide how we're going to market this and come up with a campaign or a, social media post ideas and things like that. When you have that blank slate, a lot of times your mind kind of goes, oh my gosh, is it the right direction? Do I trust that I'm going to propose this and they're going to be excited about it? So I for sure had to strengthen that muscle and develop that skill.
I hear you. When it came to just before the agency came along, between the time in the high school and you went from the agency, at some point you lost that creativity. It dipped. When was that? When did that happen?
Yeah, I think just being, really stretched thin in college. And then I think when you go to work for somebody else, like I was very fortunate to land a job at another agency right out of the gate from college. But at the same time, I think when you go to work for somebody else, you sort of try to like fit yourself into their box. You sort of, especially, again, eldest daughter, all I want to do is be a people pleaser and make sure, do you like what I'm doing? Do you like what I'm suggesting? So it's less about, this is just a crazy idea that came out of my own head, and more so, let me try to say exactly what I think that you want me to say. And that I think is really hard to truly let your creativity flourish, if you're constantly just seeking approval the whole time.
Yeah, so I suppose so. It feels like you're being stuck in a box, right? You can't breathe and get out there. I mean, it's different from when you were back at home on the farm, where you were allowed to imagine right? Read and imagine, and you could be cultivated to do that. And then when you become into the realm of being, look, I'm talking AI, the realm. What am I talking about?
In a world where
yeah, I am AI. But when you get into a situation where you have to fit into rules and regulations, when you work for a company, you are restricted, right? Because they have their way of doing things. And you must have felt that, because I can feel how you have the passion of naturally storytelling, naturally imagination. And when you start to get into that corporate side of things, and you're restricted a certain way, that must have hit you quite a bit. So how did you turn things around when you realized, I'm feeling a bit stuffy, I'm feeling a bit like I'm being held back? What did you do? What broke the camel's back when you had to do something about it?
Well, ironically, being pregnant with my second daughter, with Issa,
a man's problem. It's his fault again. Yeah, it was the ADHD with your daughter, and now the pregnancy.
But no, I think that really starting to look at my life and my career now that I was going to have, 2 girls, and feeling like, okay, I really want to make sure that I'm doing something that makes them proud. And I had my dad's example of being an entrepreneur. And so that didn't scare me. It didn't scare me to have to figure out the pieces of owning my own business. But what I was the most excited about was, if it's my name on the door, if it's my clients that I feel really passionate about, that I connect with, on a personal level, I feel like, oh, I would love to, go grab a drink with them or hang out with them. Like, I knew that I would have so much more excitement and passion about my life in general, really, if I was able to make that leap.
So your kids actually were the definitive point in your life where things changed in the right direction. And kids do anyway. When you're going to have a child, they do, full stop. But you were being stagnated within your life before then. And so there was a two-pronged situation. As parents happen, it changes your life anyway, but your creativity, also thought processes, you knew that needed to change. So that was a pivotal point in your life to go forward. So it was your kids that helped you change. You started the business. You obviously were far happier because you could also be a kid again and be creative with these little ones as they were growing up. So that was another process for you to imagine, storytell, grow for the second time in your life. Would that be fair to say?
100%. Yeah. I think that especially when you're a new mom, you're sort of looking at the world in a different lens. And, it's not just about you, it's about what kind of world am I leaving for my kids and what kind of legacy am I leaving behind? And it just 100% revolutionizes everything about you. You are not even close to the same person that you were before. And I think for me, I felt like and I'm so glad now, because I think that the way that I've been able to structure my life to be there for my kids when they need me, if I would have felt the pressure of having a boss and having somebody to report to, there's no way I wouldn't have been able to be the mom that I wanted to be. So I can't imagine raising my girls and also having to juggle, a 9-to-5 corporate job. It would just be, at least for our family, definitely not the best fit.
And when it comes to the girls, they've got a bit of their mum in them with her creativity.
I think, my oldest is definitely carbon copy, kind of wants to make sure, are we doing it all the right way? And and then, she flourishes. Absolutely. She has so much, creativity within her. But she likes to know, here's the game plan. Here's, step 1, step 2, step 3. I think where Issa really inspires me a lot is that she is so free-spirited to just throw things out there and say things that catch you 100%, off guard. And you're like, where did you even come up with that? And
that's that, isn't it? It's his fault again. I don't believe it. 3 things. I tell you what, Aquila, you've got to get rid of that man. He's not
I
good.
know. He's getting way too much credit in this episode, but no, he's for sure definitely, has way less fear than I do, around putting himself out there and going for this, going for that. So yeah, she's picked up that trait wonderfully for sure.
Wonderful. You've got a wonderful life and family. And it brings a smile to my face, for sure. And I'm glad that mum is so much better in her life. It turned around exactly in the right way to turn around in. And I'm thankful for that too. And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this podcast now that has seen your journey, where you have your lows and you have your highs, and they still continue. Life isn't perfect,
right?
But it's to show. I'm glad that the listeners can see that they may have a child that has ADHD, but it's not the end of the world. They have great gifts that they can use to be successful, and they've got their life ahead of them. And you've shown that. You've shown how, from a parent point of view, you can help your child thrive. And I thank you for that. So when it comes to your business, let's speak about that. When it comes to your business, how do you help people? Do you help people from a one-to-one point of view, from a group point of view, from a corporate point of view? Do you go out as a speaker? How does that work?
Yeah, I do love speaking. I mean, I think that probably goes back to being a person who loves storytelling and, being able to connect with a room full of people that are, enjoying hearing about your story or your background is really something that I love to do. But for the agency side, we typically work with small to medium-sized businesses. We work with a lot of founders and CEOs, directly, where we're sort of their outsourced PR and marketing department. So they're typically, small enough that they can't quite hire a full internal, team, and we step in to sort of fill those gaps for them. But we've also done some one-on-one consulting in the past. We've done some, workshops and things like that. We're always looking for ways to evolve and be able to help anybody kind of have an option for wherever you're at in your journey. But particularly working with founders, I think is really, really, inspiring and fulfilling for me to do as well.
Okay. And if you could give one thing to the listeners that could help them on their storytelling journey, what would that be?
I think I hear from a lot of founders that they don't know what to post, whether it's, it could be in your email newsletter, on your blog, in your social media. They struggle with, where do I even start? And I always like to encourage people to pay attention to the type of content that they actually enjoy. What reels you in? What makes you want to stop the scroll and pay attention? So if you feel like you're just sort of putting a post out there for the sake of, I always have to coach people on, well, should we always post about every single holiday? Should we always post about every single, sort of official announcement or whatever? It's like, well, how do you engage with that content? Do you actually enjoy that content? Do you find it to be exciting or engaging? And if the answer is no, social media is your own to make it what you want. You don't have to do anything. So create content that feels like something you would actually want to pay attention to. And then I think you'll have a much easier time of attracting an audience that actually gets you, knows what you're talking about, likes you, trusts you, and then eventually is ready to do business with you.
Good advice. Love it. So how do they contact you if they need to contact you?
Sure. Yeah. So our website is hitpr.com. And then my email's Aquila, Aquila @hitpr.com. You're welcome to reach out. We can set up a discovery call. We can chat about all things, PR, marketing, ADHD, whatever you'd like. I always love, connecting and meeting new people. So always happy to help however I can.
And listeners, you can see she's always lived her life through storytelling. It's always been the way of the imagination and the way that things are brought forward to tell a great story, from way back in the days to the days that we have right now. So as you can see, she resonates with you. You can see she's a lady that definitely knows what she's doing. She hasn't necessarily gone to college or anything like that to learn how to storytell, but she knows that from a natural point of view. It's what she's done all her life. So it makes sense to contact her, right? Go on, you can do it. So copy and paste, do what you have to do to send that email, to make that connection, because she could be the right person for you. Aquila, thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eli. I had a great time.
Okay, same here. And in the meantime, everyone, subscribe and like and do everything that you think you need to do to show your appreciation. And in the meantime, sayonara.